Sunny J Live, where we talk about the ups, the downs, the ins and outs, the crazy turnabouts, the slips, the trips, the stumbles, and the falls, but most importantly, the get back ups, as we together engage in this thing called life. And my guest today is Mr. Ken Rivers, who is a former New Jersey certified alcoholism and drug counselor. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Sunday Jam. It's a pleasure to be here. Okay.
Great.
Cool.
And talking about life's ups and downs and things like that, addiction is a huge part. And we're going to talk about that today. So to get us started, what is addiction?
Addiction is a manifestation of a form of substance abuse. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be other factors involved, okay? And it's one of those things that a lot of people get caught up in. They don't realize they're getting caught up in it until it's too late. So the whole thing about addiction is it's growing larger and larger every day. Mm-hmm. As you know, when we talk about addiction, most of the time we think about a person that's drinking alcohol, okay? But today we have all kinds of different types of addictions, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it's one of those things that, a person starts and then they find themselves they can't not stop, okay? And that's when it becomes a huge problem, not just for the person, but for anyone that surrounds them. We usually say that for every addict that you have, it affects 11 people around them. 11 people is affected. So, a lot of people say 11 people, yeah, like that, yeah. But yeah, it does affect 11 people around them, and in some cases even more.
So those 11 people, is that like family members, co-workers? What's included in that number?
That's family members, that's co-workers, that's anybody that's in that surrounding circle. It could be friends, it could be anyone in the circle.
Forget about the friends part, because a lot of times anything you do with, you can be affected by.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at least 11 people.
Yeah, but more so it affects if like it's a marriage situation, it affects the immediate family. But you have children involved, you have wife involved, and usually that's where all the dynamics usually play out. Okay, and that's usually the first front line, for people realizing there's a problem. Even though a lot of times, in a lot of cases, the family's in denial. They say, oh, the person works too hard, or they're under a lot of stress, they're under a lot of pressure, and they just make all these excuses. And before they realize it, it's out of control, and then everybody is in really bad shape. Okay, so yeah.
So it's not sometimes the person that's addicted, is the people that are around them making excuses for them, accepting the behavior.
Yeah, they're in denial and they're supporting that they're using the drugs. Yeah, the alcohol or the drugs. And, the longer they stay in denial, the worse the problem becomes, to a point where a lot of times it gets so bad that the person actually dies, okay? Or it becomes like, alcohol paralysis is one of the things that people never talk about, but that's where you get, because alcohol affects every organ of your body. And I've seen people with alcohol paralysis wind up in wheelchairs and can't walk and all that stuff because it has ripped their body of all the nutrients and stuff that it really needs to function.
And that's very interesting, because I never thought about that alcoholism could do that much damage to your body where you are in a wheelchair.
Oh yeah, it can. I mean, it does a lot of other physical damage. It affects your liver, it affects your kidneys, it can affect your heart, affects your brain, so yeah, it does its job.
Yeah, and the kidneys I knew about. The kidneys, the liver, that part, but not necessarily where, you have can't walk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Mm-hmm. So addiction is a huge problem.
It's huge.
When you talk about, okay, so now that's something that can happen from alcohol. But what about drugs? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen to somebody that's on drugs? Besides death, obviously, but what kind of things happens to them that compared to that?
Drugs have almost a similar effect as alcohol. It gets to a point where it's more physiological, but it's also more psychological too, which alcohol has the same traits. But the thing that's so vicious about drugs is that alcohol will kill you. It takes a while to kill you. But drugs, you can take alcohol can kill you instantly too, but drugs more so could do that more so than alcohol. You can take a hit on a drug today and overdose it and kill yourself. Whereas alcohol is more like a slow progression in most cases, where it takes time to reach that breaking point. Whereas you could go out and have a hit today, because they're selling bad drugs on the market today. Like we have different types of drugs out there. They have ice, they have the cocaine, they have the opiates, they have all these things that really could that's laced with other stuff, and that's what's so powerful. It can stop your heart in a heartbeat.
Wow. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. And the thing says, we deal with those kind of things every day. And like you said, people make excuses of why they're doing it or what have you. But it's, half the time you don't even know what you're taking. I mean, there's so many new things on the market, people mixing stuff, and it's crazy. I mean, it's bad enough with prescription drugs and people being addicted to that, but things on the street that people are buying, they don't even really know what they're buying. So crazy. But like I said, I never really thought about someone being paralyzed, even from alcohol. So, this is going to be a very interesting topic to talk about, and an informative topic that we all need to discuss, not only looking at ourselves, looking inward, but looking at those around us. And on that, we'll be right back.
Come on, come on. Oh, GLS, yeah. The gloss. 24/7. GLS. 365, yeah. I love it.
GLS. Welcome back to Sunny J Live, where we're talking about the important topic of addiction here with Mr. Ken Rivers. So now I want to talk about, how is this addiction affecting our communities?
Well, it affects our communities in a lot of different ways, Sunny. One of the things is targeting our children. Okay, the people behind the drug deals today are working out deals where they can actually lace the stuff they're giving to our kids. But they have ice, they have cheese, they have all these different types of drugs that they're actually peddling in schools. And the kids are buying them, and they're cheap. For a couple of dollars you can buy this here, and our kids are using them before they're addicted. So therefore the drug trade for them is really lucrative because they're making tons of money. But then it's also affecting our workers. We have people that's going to work every day doing stuff and smoking and doing all kinds of different things going to work because they say, the job is too stressful, this, that, and the other. So therefore they do something to kind of pick them up.
Right, take the edge off.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have another situation where we have drugs that's legal.
Right.
So we have the over-the-counter drugs and we have prescription drugs. And what's happening right now, every facet of every age group now is being affected by drugs of some kind. Our children's being fed drugs with the HDHD movement. They got to be on drugs. We got our middle-aged people taking drugs because of stress and other things that go on medically. And then we have the seniors on drugs, and we have them on sometimes 24, 30 different types of medications. And therefore, the drug industry is making out like crazy, not just the legal drug industry, but the illegal.
Absolutely.
So we have it really rampant in our communities, and one of the biggest problems we have today is opiates, and that's affecting every single. That's mostly adults, but who would ever think? But our adults will get to the point where they're actually overdosing on opiates. But it's happening every day.
Absolutely, but the sad part is, they passed all of that with, they had the whole pain pill mills where people were just writing prescriptions for opiates, right. They shut a lot of those down, but then the laws made it harder for people that need the medication to get it. So that's the sad part. It kind of went so far with one direction that when you need a pain medication, you almost have to beg to have the pain medication that you need for that time period, not to be on it forever, but for the time that you need it. So it's kind of going so far one way to try to prevent that from happening, unfortunately. But, you got to control it.
But in a way, they're really not controlling it, because if you can't get it the right way, a lot of people will get it the wrong way.
Right.
There's a way, but there's a will, there's a way. And a lot of people, that's where the drug people come up, the street people are getting their big, take the money, because they can get it legally from somebody, illegally, from somebody who's peddling on the streets. They can, they have the oxycodone and all the other stuff that they're still peddling out there on the streets.
Absolutely.
Somehow they get it.
They're getting it from somebody.
Somebody's getting it done.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So like you said, it's every age group from, just depend on what they're getting addicted to or what they're using, but they're targeting the youth all the way up. all the way up.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. And you know, I mean, like you said, they're trying to curtail some of this stuff, but it ain't working. Come on. I see more people getting high today than I ever seen when I was coming up. You know, it's like a recreational drug, man. Everybody wants to feel good, you know, whatever. You know, what happened to this natural?
Our society has changed in a lot of ways, but absolutely, you got to find, you know, your natural happiness, your natural joy, your natural peace, which is very, very important. Like, now, what would you say is the worst kind of addiction?
Well, to me, they're all worst. They're all terrible. Okay, alcohol is terrible. Drugs is terrible if you abuse it. Okay, and you know, people always ask me, what is the worst kind of drug? To me, they're all worst. Alcohol is bad. Drugs are bad. And if, like I said, if you abuse them, you're a target.
Or you abuse anything.
Anything, yes, you're a target. And you know, when we talk about abuse and addiction, you know, there's a whole lot of addictions out there. You know, people don't realize sometimes what are some of these addictions. You know, we have food addiction. Okay, we have gambling addictions. So we have sex addiction. We have you know, stuff like internet addiction, social media addiction, phone addiction. You name it, there's so many of them out there. You know, we have sport addiction. Okay, you know, you know how many people that play the game or something.
And they gotta watch it. They gotta watch it.
Oh, look, yes, I did. It's like, oh man, you know, I understand the support, but it ain't like that. Every single game come out, you know, something to do. But that's the way. That's the kind of society we live in today. Our kids are addicted to the cell phones. A lot of our adults are in the same category.
That's true.
They live on them phones, you know. And you know, what happened to the time when you know you could actually talk to somebody? You know, I remember taking a train and you know, say, "How you doing?" And you have a conversation. Now,
Absolutely.
Everybody's on their phone, looking at their phone,
Right.
doing stuff on their phones. It's like the outside world doesn't exist. It's all centered around this one little thing. You get caught up in it. You know, even though say alcohol and drugs are really bad, it kills you. But a lot of other addictions can do a lot to you too. You know, they can ruin your family lives.
Absolutely.
You know, even the kids, you know, they don't want to sit around the table and have lunch or dinner with you anymore because they're so busy want to go in their rooms and get on their phones and stuff, and we let them do it.
Yeah. Communication, you know, definitely has minimized because of that. And then the whole thing with just, you know, abbreviating everything and all of that, you know, that's crazy, but that's a whole topic for another day. But, you know, it's funny because you're right, there's a lot of different addictions, and there's a lot of organizations that support a lot of different types of addictions. But I guess the number one thing is you got to know, you know, you got to know that you are addicted. And what we're going to do, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the warning signs. So things that we should look out for in other people and things we might need to look at for ourselves. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunny J Live, and we're talking about addictions, and we're here with Mr. Ken Rivers. And now that we've talked about like what is addiction, types of addictions, let's talk about like what are those warning signs that we should look for.
Well, usually the first sign that people should be looking for is not normally like when a person starts off, say they're drinking alcohol, or usually once they have their first drink, and nothing will happen, they just have a drink. Okay, and what the problem is that your brain picks up that, and it gives you that sense of euphoria when you feel good, when you feel good, and you feel, wow, I like that, I felt good. They have 2 drinks, then 3 drinks, and then 4 drinks, and then they realize that, well, I had a 4 days worth of go home and have a little something, take the edge off, and then they go home and start drinking a little bit more, and before they realize it, they're already into alcohol. There's 3 levels of drinking, of course. You have your beginners, then you have your moderate drinkers, and then you have your severe drinkers. Okay? And what happens is that as you go through the different stages, you can see the progression. Usually, the person that's actually addicted will not see the progression, but the friends and family members will see the addiction way before they ever see it. Okay, and like the 3 levels, as you go from 1 to 3, you find out things happen within that whole period. Like for example, when you first start off, it's fun, you're going out, you're enjoying yourself, you're dancing, you have a good time, everything's cool. Then one day you realize that, wow, I kind of moved in a little bit, I was out dancing, you know, I didn't remember how I got home.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Then you start realizing, you know, there's something up, and you're like, oh, I just drank a little too much, I'm gonna cut back. And you might cut back for a couple of days or a week. Then you go back and do it again, and before you know it, you're caught up. Okay, now you get into the second stage. And then things start really getting rough. You're missing days at work, you're feeling like tired in the morning, you want to get up. You know, if I have a drink, I'll feel better. When I go to work, I feel better. Sure. And then before you know it, they're drinking and going to work. Okay? And you know, a lot of our businesses, believe it or not, is centered around drinking because they have business days. It's about the lunches. You're out to lunch, and then you have a few drinks. You have to get that deal done. You got to get it signed. You know, you take your client out, you have a few drinks.
They don't feel good, right?
They sign the paperwork, and before you know it, it's like an everyday thing. Nobody realizes that you become addicted. And then before you know it, you're caught up in it. Every time everywhere you go, you gotta have a drink. You go to bed, you gotta have a drink. You get up in the morning, you gotta have a drink. You might have seen it as a problem. You see it as a way of just, I feel bad.
A way of coping.
Yeah, coping. And before you know it, you're into alcohol drinking.
You just gotta have it all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, you just realize you gotta have it in the morning. You have to do it. Now people will say, well, what about a periodic drinker? A person who just drinks once in a while, but they get done that. Well, they drink answer to that is yes. You know, there's people who drink once every 6 months, and they still can be an alcoholic because when they do drink, they make up for all the 6 months that they didn't drink.
So they get
They get blasted. They just go out and go, oh, wow, go crazy. It's like you see it like on jobs, you know, you see a person who's just so reserved, laid back, and you know, quiet. But then they have a party one day, and at the job, they're up on the table dancing and doing all this stuff. And you're like, what happened? Where's that coming from? That person is an alcoholic drinker. But then again, they'll be cool for the next 6 months or so. You have to peep at them. But when they pick it up again, they're back to doing it.
So basically, then if I'm hearing that, it's that people that don't limit. Like if they go out and say, I'm going to have a drink, or it's a social gathering, they have a drink or two. It's the people that once they start drinking, they just keep going.
Yeah, the ones who get caught up in addiction, now there are such things as moderate drinkers.
Like social
drinkers, yeah, you know, they don't have a problem. They go, they have one or two drinks. So somebody take a drink and person all night, you know, they no big deal. Whereas an alcoholic, you know, they be like full the glass up to the top and they trying to hold another glass while they're getting that one down.
I got you.
Yeah, that's the
so they're trying to reach a point where they start to feel that feeling, whatever that feeling is that they want them to get to. They're trying to get there that much quicker every time.
Right.
Okay.
Or get to a point where they get so drunk they gotta be carried home. Somebody I think the keys to the car, but they want to drive, and I think that they're now way over the top.
Right.
Okay? And
so they're out of control on how to manage or, you know, control how much they drink.
Yeah, well, I think it's still once you get to a certain level, there is no such thing as managing anymore. You don't manage it, it manages you. That's why your drugs and everything become so dangerous and so dangerous to a person because they wind up being controlled by the substance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not by, you know, they don't have control of it. They lose control and then that substance takes control of them. And that's where the problem comes into severity. Where people now ain't got no choice.
No choice.
They have to have that or they just can't function.
Gotta have it. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, there are definitely people that we know go to work and, you know, as soon as they walk in the door, they start drinking. And they'll drink all the way till the time they go to sleep. I mean, that is just, it has become their pattern every day. That's what they do. And then on weekends, they can start earlier because they don't have to work.
And they don't see it as a problem.
They don't see it as a problem. Because as far as they're concerned, I still go to work every day. I still, you know, take care of my responsibilities, whatever. But I guess they're missing a key piece is that piece when they start drinking until the time they go to bed, it's like, what is that relationship with, whether it's that family, whether it's their spouse, what changes in that relationship?
Yeah, because, you know, I know quite a few families I've worked with who would say, well, you know, like one wife was telling me her husband, you know, comes home every day, he's funny, you know. He has his drink and he lays down and has his sleep every day. It's a pattern, you know. They say, oh, you know, just have a few drinks.
And now he's sleep.
But, you know, they said, how's that affecting the family? Well, it is affecting the family because first of all, the kids, you never get to play with the kids, right? They're coming home on the couch, drinking, and
Falling asleep.
falling asleep on the couch every day. So that's taken away from the family. Yeah? The wife doesn't get any time with it because he's always coming home falling asleep on the couch. And he might be there all night because she can't wake him up and get into the bedroom. Okay, so I mean, sure, it's affecting the family, but she just don't see it. She
You
says,
don't see
"Oh, okay, he's cool."
He's not bothering anybody.
You know. And then of course you have the other time, you want to come home and want to beat everybody up and go crazy and throw stuff around.
The
And,
angry drunks.
yeah. Well, you know, this off the chain.
Yeah, the ones that should just not drink, period.
Period.
Ever. And those are the ones that are, you know, it's crazy because those people, and you could tell them, you know what, you really should drink.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because when you drink, you become somebody else. But they don't see it. And they know whatever it is that they feel when they drink, when they get confident, whatever it gives them. But they don't see the after effect from that how angry and mean and how they just become a totally different person. And that's the part that's really scary. I mean, all of it's scary, you know, but of course the man that comes home and has a couple and goes to sleep is a lot less scary because he's not, you know, he's not bothering anybody physically. You know, maybe that is a mental thing still because the kids don't get a chance or the family doesn't get a chance to enjoy them. So there is some mental problems there, but it's not the physical, right? And yeah, it's crazy. And some people just don't understand that they cannot drink. But then they must be an alcoholic because if someone tells you that you become like somebody totally different and multiple, like have an intervention to tell you that and you don't change and you still continue to drink, then that's definitely a problem. That's definitely a problem.
Well, it goes back into the category I was saying where they lose all the control of the drink. The drink is control of them. They cannot say no. It's not like, okay, I'm going to stop today, that's it, I'm done. They like that. It's like that drink is called. Come on, pick it up again. And you're just too weak. I'm like, all right. You know, and that's it. They're totally controlled.
They're totally controlled.
Totally controlled.
Wow.
That's why people have such a hard time just trying to stop.
Trying to stop.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of components in that stop. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, you know, we will talk about that, but we're going to take a pause for the calls. And you know what? If you're going to get something to drink, maybe get some water, and we'll be right back.
KY, come on. Oh, GLS, yeah. The gloss. 24/7. GLS, 365, yeah.
Welcome back to Sunny J Live. And my guest, Mr. Ken Rivers, and we're talking about addiction. So just to catch you up, I hope you've been watching. We've talked about, you know, what is addiction, warning signs of addiction, how people are affected by addictions, the worst kind of addictions, which there is no worse. And now we want to talk about, you know, if somebody is addicted, how they can be treated or what they can do to get past that addiction.
Yeah, well, that's like the case. That's really tough. Because a lot of people don't realize they're addicted. If you don't realize you got a problem, you're not going to realize it.
Right.
Okay? And it takes an awful lot to bring somebody to realize they are addicted. It's the worst thing on earth is to tell somebody you can't do something. You're sick and tired, then they'll try to do something about it. Okay? And a lot of people say, well, I can stop anytime I want. And they stop. They do stop. For a week or two or whatever, and they feel like they got it really mastered. You know, and then what happens is they go pick up a drink, and before you know it, or a drug, and they're right back in the same position they were in a few weeks before. And because of that, it makes it even worse because a lot of people feel like they can manage it some way, and they can't. They can't. Once you're out of control, you're out of control. So one of the things that happens is to get somebody in treatment. A lot of times they have various programs across the nation that helps people with programs and the programs. Okay, but the thing is, there's only one way you stop drugging, and that's it. You have to go through it's really within you. Mm-hmm. You know, we always say, you know, you can go to treatment programs, which is good because they can detox you, they can give you medicine, they can make you feel good. But the problem is they cannot deal with the addiction. Okay, and what that means is that we have what I call a progression line that runs within all of us. Mm-hmm. Okay, and where it winds up in addiction is that if you drink, say you pick up a drink today and you start drinking, and say 2 years from now we're up to 20 drinks, okay, a day. Well, the progression got you to that point, of the 20. 20 years. Then what happens is that one day you stop. And you feel like, wow, I feel good, I'm not doing this anymore. Now I feel healthier, I've been working out, I've been doing all this good stuff. Now I'm gonna go back to drinking again. So I'm running. Then go back and pick up the first one. And for the very first couple of days, a week, a month, you're doing fine. You're managing 1, 2, 3. And then what happens one day, you wake up, you're up to 40.
Oh, wow.
And you say, what happened? It was at 3 yesterday. But they don't realize the progression line doesn't stop. Even though you stopped, the progression line keeps going. So what happens is, when you pick up again, you wind up where you would have been if you drank the whole 40 years.
Wow. That's crazy.
See? And that's where people, that's why when a person goes back to drugging, they usually go down the hill really fast. They're drinking. Like one day they're drinking, next thing you know they're sleeping on the streets. Because now the progression line is progressing and their drinking is progressing to the point of blood until they just can't.
So it's quick.
Yeah, it's like boom. And you don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I had a job yesterday, I don't have a job, I had a house, I gotta go. Where's my family? Is that you lost everything.
Yeah, very sure. Now that's crazy, and that's something people really have to be aware of. And it sounds like, because if I'm hearing you correctly, because I want to reiterate that, because I want everybody to understand, if you have an alcohol problem or a drug problem, whatever that problem is, and you stop, if you start up again, even if you say, oh well, it's been a long time since I had a drink, I can have one, or it's been a long time since I had whatever drug it was, oh I can have one. What you're saying is that time that person has stopped, when they start again, they're picking up not from the beginning, like I'm just getting started, they're picking up from where they left off at. So if you were an alcoholic, when you have that first drink, whether it's 10 years, 15, 20 years, when you have that first drink, you're starting from where you left off at, where you were alcoholic. So you started right there. Wow. So that's why people, like you said, people can start drinking or whatever, and they lose things so quickly because they started from that point. Wow, that's crazy.
Yep, and that's the thing that people can't realize. They don't realize that. They think that they can just start all over again and everything will be okay, or take it easy this time. They don't realize they just start themselves that definitely.
Yeah, you can't do that. That
right.
doesn't work. Wow. So the key piece to any type of addiction,
if you want to stop, you gotta stay stopped.
Stay stopped. You just cannot. There's no such thing as control. There's no such thing as I can manage it. You just can't. Period.
A lot of people use that psychological game on themselves, like, oh, I'm feeling better, things are good, I got my job back, my wife and kids are back now, everything is good. I'm just gonna drink sociably again. I'm not gonna go back like I did before and drink 30 drinks a day. I'm gonna drink this more than 2, and that's it. Not realizing, like I said, they just signed their death warrant, because what's gonna happen is they're gonna spiral out of control again to the point where they're gonna lose everything.
You'll lose everything.
Everything. That's what happens to a lot of alcoholics. They lose every single thing. They lose their homes, their families, their cars, everything, jobs, everything.
Because it happens so quickly, and it spirals so quickly that there is no control in there. So there's no catching themselves. It's
Exactly.
like it hits and it just keeps going.
And it's funny because you see like a doctor on the streets, and you'll be like,
How did that happen?
That doctor, man, he had money. He had money, he had prestige, he had status. I mean, what happened to him? That's what happened. He had an alcohol problem, he had a drug problem. He picked up again. He stopped for a while and things were good again, and then he started picked up, and now he's past the point of return.
Right. Wow. And that's a warning. I think that's the thing. I think that they don't share that. That's something that needs to be shared. Now I'm sure they do in the treatment programs and things like that. They talk about that, right?
Yeah, most of the programs talk about that. Yeah. And today we have a lot of different programs out there that's set up to help people. But a lot of times with programs, a lot of people just can't. They can't deal with a program. They go, I can't. I don't want to go away. I ain't want to stay no more. This is my thing. But if everybody there's programs that are free too that you can go to that's really helpful. And there's a whole process you can go through that would actually help you to stop and stay stopped. Okay. I would like to share that with some people too, but I have a book coming out, so I'd like to work on to read my book and I'll tell them how to stay stopped.
Because that's important.
Yeah.
Stay stopped.
Stay stopped. It's not a matter of stopping. You gotta stay stopped. You have to just stop. And a lot of people just can't stay stopped
because they don't understand that concept.
And
I think that's the key piece. They don't understand that you just cannot ever do that again.
Ever.
Because that one time is a trap.
That's right.
And I never knew that. I never knew that there was a progression that keeps going. So I think that for our viewers, that's really something very important. So if you have a family member or yourself, if you've been addicted to anything, the key piece is you can never ever go back to that, not ever, because of that progression factor. And that's the same thing that's true for anybody in your family or your friends. So how do you hold people accountable?
Well, you know, when you say accountable, you mean family or just
friends, yourself, family? Like, how would you hold somebody accountable that had a problem? What do you do to keep them, you know, from...
Well, the whole irony to that thing is that you have to change people, places, and things.
Okay.
See, that's the most important factor right there. Can't socialize with the people that are still drinking. Can't be around three people that's going to say, oh, come on, man, just have one. It's not going to hurt you. Come on, see, your problem, you drank too many before. Just take one or two, you'll be fine. You got to stay away from those kind of people. You can't go to bars and hang out in bars and clubs and stuff like that.
Too tempting.
Too tempting. You can't put yourself in situations where there's alcohol flowing, you know, readily, and you're sitting there trying to drink a soda or something. Because it ain't going to work. I mean, so...
Too tempting.
Yeah, too tempting. You know, a lot of times, you know, people go back to that. Well, you know, when they first started, they go back to that. Oh, I remember when I first started, I was dancing, doing the twist or whatever the dance was back in the day, or what's going on now. They could, you know, they feel like, oh, those are the good days of my life. And then that kind of pulls them back into that. Well, you know, maybe I can get back to that. And the reality is you can't get back to it. It's gone. Those days are gone.
It's gone. Those days are gone. And they need to stay gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep the memories, but that's it.
And then the other thing is, then after a person is really addicted, a lot of times the family feels guilty about it because they feel like, oh, there's something I should be able to do to help them. And then this whole thing about, you know, people say tough love, just don't do this, don't do that, don't hide the bottle of those other stuff. And, you know, the bottom line to that is that it's not the family's problem that person is addicted. That's the person addicted, that's their problem, not the family's problem. The family is not in the treatment business, okay? Their thing is that they can try to support as much as they can, but, you know, the bottom line is the person's going to have to want to do it rather than the family feeling guilty and all the stuff about what's going on with that person, because that's that person's choice. They want to drink, they want to drug, you know, and until they realize it, all that stuff about everything else that's going on around them and everything, it doesn't matter. Until the person comes to the realization that they really need to stop and they really want to do it. People used to come to me and ask me about, you know, the willpower, and I should say, well, if your willpower is so strong, have you tried on diarrhea? And they'd be like, oh, that's how strong your willpower is, you know. So, you know, I said, you know what, if you really want to stop doing something, you got to put your faith in something, okay? And one of the things that I feel has worked over the years for a lot of millions of people has been God, okay, their higher power, whether it's Judah, whether it's Allah, whether it's Ali, Ali, not even Ali.
Well, whoever you believe in.
I'm talking about, you know, the Muslim God.
Right.
So, you know, I'm just saying, if you got to put your faith in something, you got to have something that you can believe in that's going to help you. Like people who say, I don't care if you believe in a rock, but you got to believe in something other than yourself, because you're not really strong enough to really stop on your own. So a lot of people who've really gotten themselves together over the years, who've been doing really well and staying away from drugs and alcohol, the people who really put their faith in something other than themselves. And believe it or not, a lot of them really do well. And then, of course, you have the people who's going to die because, you know, they're not going to get it. You know, they're not going to get it. And, you know, to me, I do a training session on teachers and learners, okay? And what that is that a teacher will teach you what you need to do to kill yourself. Just keep right on drinking. Come on, pick it up again. It ain't gonna hurt you. Don't worry, it's gonna be all right. And of course, the learner is the person that learns from that teacher's experience. Okay, and that's kind of cold, but it's the truth. You know, a teacher will teach you how to kill yourself, whereas a learner will learn from that teacher and say, "Hey, I ain't going that route. I'm gonna stop right now. I'm gonna do what I gotta do to get my act together," and they will succeed.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's definitely doable. We know that it is doable, right? Mm-hmm. I think the key piece is that people have to hold themselves accountable. They have to take ownership. So no matter what's going on in your life, because we've shown stories of people that have had horrific things happen in their life, never turned to drugs, never turned to alcohol, had faith, and that's how they were able to get through it. They didn't use it as a crutch. A lot of people use the alcohol, the drugs, things like that as a crutch and a means of escape, but that means of escape leads to bigger problems. It's really not an escape at all. It becomes like a huge burden and a trap within itself. So the key piece is you have to, I heard you say you have to want to. You have to want to stop. You have to decide, for yourself. And your family can't do it for you. They can be supportive in ways, but they cannot do it, and they can't make you stop. So take note that we have to be careful in our actions and what we do, the decisions that we make. And we're going to take a moment. We're going to come back. We're going to have some final thoughts. We're going to, just kind of wrap it up. But this has been a very interesting topic. I definitely learned some things today, and I know that you did too. And feel free to share it, because everybody needs to know about addictions, how to control, how to manage, what it means, what they look like. It's a very intricate subject. And we'll be right back. Hi, have a TV show idea, but don't know how to get started? Reach out to me at glstvnetwork.com at gmail.com. Again, that's glstvnetwork.com at gmail.com. And we'll help you find your voice. Welcome back to Sunny J Live. I know you've had a lot of food for thought and lots of things to consider and really think about, because it's a very deep subject, and a lot of us take it very surface level and think, oh, they just, they strung out on drugs, or they're a crack addict, or they're a drug, they're alcoholic or whatever. But there's a lot that goes into that. But there's a lot that, also, let's talk about the other side of that. There are things that people can do if they get caught up in that trap. What can they do?
Well, for one thing, there's a lot of treatment programs out there today. There's a lot of them all over the place. So you've heard of different treatment programs on TV and different commercials and everything. And that's the thing. The first thing you have to do is get yourself clean. You got to stop. Okay? And once you stop, then that's when the work really begins. Okay? It's not a question of just stopping. After you stop, there's a lot of work that's got to be done, because that's where, like I say, the hard work really begins. And for some people, it's a struggle. Some people slip. Some people, they say slip, it means that they pick up and start all over again. And, a lot of times, it's good to surround yourself with people who's trying to do the same thing you're doing. Okay? There's programs out there that help you with that. You got to have people you need to talk to when you start feeling down. Or you feel
that's called sponsors and things like that, right?
Yeah, there's programs out there. They have sponsors. They have people that'll come to your rescue when you need them. And that's important. You got to surround yourself with people that actually are doing the same thing you're doing, because they can help you get through some of the rough spots and everything. And once that's going and you start getting yourself together, your life back on track, then you have to come up with a program for you that suits you, on how you're going to stay stopped and how you're going to save your life in terms of what you're going to do, whether you lost your family or you get a chance to get it back, or you got a job, or whatever. You got to put yourself in a position where you're not going to start picking up and doing that again. Don't get yourself into the parties with the job and just hanging out at the clubs after work and all that stuff. Go home, watch TV, go to a meeting. There's meetings out there you can go to every night of the week. Keep yourself straight. So, like I said, it's a lot of work, and but if you really want it bad enough, you'll do what it takes to get yourself together. And believe me, it works.
It works. So there's a lot of resources for you. Like you said, and don't put yourself in tempting situations, but the work starts after. So once you've made that decision to become clean, to stop, the hard work begins, because it's that stay stop. And having somebody maybe hold you accountable, like accountability partner, we say in business, so like a sponsor or something, or like your resources, like you said, there's meetings and things like that every night of the week, so if you feel weak, go to a meeting,
right.
But you have to be open to those resources to keep you in the right mindset, right, to stay stopped.
That's right.
Stop, stay stopped.
Stay stopped.
Yeah.
Stop is one thing, but the key to it all is staying stopped. And that's what most people that have problems in the programs do. They have a problem staying stopped. And like I said, you can go all treatment programs in the world. It don't matter if you haven't made the decision yourself to stop drugging or using alcohol. It's up to you.
So whatever it is. So we hope that you learned a lot from this, that you, like I said, you can share it, that you can also do some safeguards for yourself. If you feel like you're kind of on the brink of that, take a look. Sometimes we got to look in the mirror and look at ourselves and see if there's anything in our life that really is an addiction. Sometimes we do self-denial, right? That, oh no, that's not it. But we got to be, honest with ourselves, honest with our friends, honest with our families, not support, negative actions, to say, okay, because life is hard. We already know that, right? Mm-hmm. Life is hard. Life is busy, families, jobs, all kinds of things. But, we just cannot develop a crutch that is basically either going to kill us, mm-hmm. kill our relationships, take everything away from us. So, take note. If you got to have a little poster, to look at every morning, whatever it takes. But it can be done. So
yeah, and just remember, there's all types of addictions. There's gambling, there's social media, there's food, there's sports, there's phones, there's you just name it. There's a lot of them out there. There's porn addictions, sex addictions, and just because when people say addiction, the first thing that comes to your mind is drugs and alcohol. But there's a lot more out there. Believe me, they can be just as devastating as the other ones. So keep that in mind. Okay, cool.
So on that note, we thank you, Mr. Ken Rivers, for sharing this great information with us. That hopefully it'll save some lives, some mm-hmm. families, some jobs, some relationships, all those kinds of things. And of course, you can do more research, but we look forward to sharing more information with you about addiction and also from Mr. Ken Rivers. So on that note, it's Sunny J with Sunny J Live. And until next time, love ya. Bye-bye. Be blessed. Hold up, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the trailer of Looking in the Mirror, which is streaming
on Tubi, NBC Peacock, Amazon Prime, Sling TV, Roku, Hoopla, Voodoo.
Get out.
I'm sorry I've been bad. I promise I'll be good from now on.
My mom had gotten in the habit of dropping me off with totally different strangers. One day while my mom was doing one of her vanishing acts, my Aunt Cece dropped me off to my grandmother on my dad's side named Beatrice. Boy, I sure didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Better not tell nobody what happened.
Then I was sentenced to prison and pregnant.
I'm Dr. Lewis, and this is Nurse Thomas. Relax. Okay.
So I ended up going back to jail. I still couldn't get it right. And I met a girl named Tammy, and we became fast friends. And she introduced me to her brother E.
I'm gonna end up putting the ring right there on that finger. I ain't playing.
You drive a hard bargain, baby.
You crazy. Go.
And let's go.
I'm not coming home.
Go. Whoa, come on.
I don't deserve this.
So what, you gonna shoot me?
If we ask you to do something, you do it.
Right.
Why did you take that money from my purse?
Really gonna come over here with this? Oh, you came here to play, huh?
I'm ready to take things to the next level.
KY, come on.